we have Noah, right, where Noah leaves the Teva, and he plants for himself a vineyard, and things don't go so well after that. Even some Mepharshim will say it's a little earlier that one of the fruits of the Eitz Hadar were actually the Geffen, was actually the grapes. But we continue with Sefer Bereshit, and it comes up with Saramashkim, and grapes make another appearance with the Meraglim. That's one of the things that the Meraglim brought with them from the land of Israel, and they use that for a bad thing. We know by the Nazir that the Nazir abstains from grapes and abstains from wine because there's a negative connotation. Right? Maybe he learned from the Sota that she drank too much wine, but whatever it is, there's a negative connotation to grapes. However, we know on the other side of things that we use wine every week. We're using wine right now for the simcha, for the joy, to enhance the Tu B'shvat Seder. We use it every week for Kiddush. We know one of our most important mitzvot of the 4 cups of wine that we have during the Seder is 4 cups of wine. So what do we make of this duality of the negative connotations of the grapes and of wine and the positive aspects? And I think the answer lies in a mitzvah, lesser known mitzvah, called Kilai HaKerem. What is Kilai HaKerem? We know what Kilaim is. Right? We all know that the more commonly known as shatnez. When you check your clothes for shatnez, that's really what's called kilaim. It's making sure that things aren't mixed with one another, that wool and linen aren't mixed. Kilaim also is with animals, to make sure that animals aren't interbred. But there's one interesting law of kilaim, which has a special law for a vineyard. It's called Kilai HaKerem. Making sure that your vineyard doesn't mix with any other seeds, with wheat or barley. So why specifically for a vineyard? Right? Why is there a special mitzvah or a prohibition by a vineyard that you can't mix your vineyard with anything else? So I think what we just said, that wine is and grapes are such a powerful substance. They can be used for good, but they can also be used for bad. And what Torah is trying to teach us with Kilayim, with Kilai HaKerem specifically, with the vineyard, is that when you use wine, when you're planting your vineyard, it must be pure. Your intentions must be for Hashem. If you all of a sudden now mix other things with that wine and turn that wine not pure, then you're going to use it for bad things. We know if a non-Jew touches wine, you can't use that wine, right? For some reason, wine, someone touching it and someone having the wrong intentions, it makes it impure. So when we make kiddush on wine, right, we have this substance that could be used for bad things. But what we're doing is we're sanctifying the wine. When we make kiddush on the wine, when we use it for the 4 cups on Pesach, what we're really doing is declaring that our intentions are holy, that our intentions are pure. And I think on this Tu B'shvat, drinking the wine, definitely here, I think our intentions are good. But I think throughout the entire year, and especially we're coming up on Purim, Purim cuts on next month, but another 2 months for Purim. And there's always a discussion about, should we be drinking wine on Purim? Do people go too far with drinking wine on Purim? But I think it's always important for us, whenever we have a substance like this, which is so powerful and which could lead to such bad things, it's always important to sanctify it, to make the kiddush, right? To elevate the wine and take it from a substance which maybe could be dangerous and maybe something that the Nazir wants to stay away from, and say, no, we're not staying away from this substance. We know how to put aside all of our personal things, all of our maybe bad intentions, and we're going to take this substance and elevate it only to serve Hashem. So, Tu B'shvat Sunday.
All right. Well, again, we want to thank, first of all, our host tonight, and it's Seth and Lisa. Thank you so much for hosting this. Been in this home many times for wonderful occasions, and often Israeli-related themes. So just a big shkoach, and especially a shkoach because many times in Anshe we had a Tu B'shvat Seder. We always made sure to have different types of fruits, and I noticed we have 3 fruits that have shells. We have 2 fruits that have pits. We have 4 fruits that have neither pits nor shells, and altogether we have 10 fruits or 11. And some say that's a beautiful Kabbalistic thing that, we don't want to make a very coarse kind of, kaviyachol with a relationship with God, but there is an idea that God, I was reading something from Victor Miller. He was saying that God could have made a very simple world where we have bread, and everyone wakes up in the morning, you have bread, you have water, you go to sleep. But instead, God made what's the lashon of the bracha for new trees? The God bara ilanot tovot. The God made beautiful trees, all these different types of things with shells and pits and seeds and seedless and pitless, and we have all different things, different colors. We can enjoy textures that we can enjoy, so that life is beautiful. We were talking on Shabbat about the idea that the Shivat Aminim, many of them, other than wheat, barley, and I would say olives, the rest are not practical fruits. You don't need pomegranates. You don't need dates and figs. But and yet God gave us the luxury of having a land that's blessed with luxurious kinds of fruits. But I was asked specifically to speak about the Te'ina. So what do we know about the Te'ina? So number one, just to say that I of course got the best fruit because in Shoftim, in the book of Judges, there's this not so good guy named Yotam, and basically a mass murderer of some sort. But in any event, he makes a mashal, and he says that all the trees came to the Te'ina and other trees, and asked him if he would be king over all the trees. He says no, he doesn't have what he used to, so he can't do it. But so Te'ina is certainly up there among the king of trees. We know that it's very possible that the first fruit was a fig, because after all, in that story, it doesn't say what kind of fruit the Eitz Hadat is, the tree of knowledge, but we do know that they had fig leaves, which they used to cover themselves up. So it mentions something about figs, and very often, in order to fix a sin, you have to use that very thing which you sinned. So the rabbinic theory, among others, that the fruit that Adam and Eve ate was a teina, a fig, makes a certain amount of sense. And someone who explains, or there's a rush on Chumash that explains that word teina is related to the word onein, mourning, because if indeed the teina, the fig, was the first fruit, then it brought mourning to the world, it brought death to the world. So it had to relate to the word onein, etc. Now, so it's interesting that as one midrash points out, that this very thing which brought sin, it also brought the opportunity for clothing later. So it was sort of turned around from what it was. Now, some people compare this first fruit to Torah, and it's natural, because if indeed it's the fruit of knowledge, then it relates somehow to Torah. And how does the fig relate to Torah? Because the fig, it grows little by little. A few figs grow here, and it's not there one season, and then you take all the figs off. It grows a little bit over here, a little there. Apparently, some of the figs, the early figs, grow on last year's branches, and then some of the later figs go on next year's branches. So, since it has different fruits at different times, so too when it comes to Torah, we learn little by little. We learn a little Parsha Shavua here, a little Daf Yomi over there, a little Dvar Torah over here, a little Rabbi speech over there, and together we put together some Torah. So there's never too little Torah. Every little bit counts. Also, there's a Yalkut Shimoni that says that the mentions the Gemara in Brachos that if you see a fig in your dream, then your Torah will last with you. Why? Because a fig is one of those fruits, like the buxer and like the grape and the apple, that doesn't really have much chaff to it. The fig, you eat the whole thing, and some like to eat even the stem. So therefore, it's so too with Torah. There's nothing, even if you have a little Dvar Torah, or sometimes you listen to the Dvar Torah and you say, it wasn't such a good Dvar Torah. No, it's also a Dvar Torah, and you learn something from it, and you learn, and you get the mitzvah of Torah. Every little bit of Torah, no such thing as bad Torah. You learn something. So here's something that started out as mourning the first sin, and yet it can become a symbol of Eitz Hadat, knowledge, Torah, of learning, and a good thing can come of it. Now, I know I'll say this at the risk of sounding very much like Dr. Cutleroff, but if you look into how figs grow, it's not a fruit. It is a flower. There's lots of flowers, and they're hidden in this shell. And they have a little hole at the end that you can get in, and it's designed so that it will really only allow, ideally, it only allows a certain wasp to go in there, and he comes in there, and he fertilizes between the male trees and the female trees. Now, so you say it's a big conflict problem, because very often the wings of the wasp can't get in. He loses wings when he goes in. He gets stuck in there and he dies in there. He pollinates eggs in there. All kinds of things are going on. So there are three approaches. If you go on the internet, you'll find this really religious guy looking at the fig inside and finding worms and everything and telling you that he doesn't eat figs. So that's why we're very from here. We didn't serve any figs tonight. That's approach number one. Approach number two is what are you talking about? The Torah says it's one of the species which Israel is blessed in. It must be okay. So, but what about all the? We know that depending if you have a male or female fig, you definitely have wasps in there. You have eggs. Yeah, but they get digested. They go in there, and then the fig kind of turns it into other things, into the seeds, and it all works out beautifully. That's the second approach. And the third approach is that, well, you have to make sure you get the right fig. Make the male one or the female one. In modern times, they don't always have the right wasp, but they use artificial methods. So, anyway, you don't have to worry about it. What am I saying? I'm saying that if you think about it, the fig is potentially a very disgusting, very forbidden, highly forbidden fruit. Forbidden fruit. And yet, somehow it's one of the 7 species, a beautiful thing. Which is the same point we just made, that it went from sin and then it transformed into the tshuva, the repentance, and the Adam and Eve trying to make amends and making something out of it, and into Torah and into something better. So, and in fact, the Teinah is a symbol both of Ein Teinah B'Teinim, as Jeremiah says, there's no figs on the fig tree. It's a terrible symbol of poverty and terrible times and famine. And one day it'll be a symbol, it'll turn around. It has this ability to turn around, the symbol of Ish Tachat Gafno V'Tachat Tinato. Look forward to a day when there'll be such wealth that every person will be able to sit under their grapevine, under their and under their fig tree, and just enjoy the grapes and the wine in good measure, and a fig. So the Teinah really, in many ways, is a symbol of the turning around. And everyone that we've spoken over Shabbat, Wendy and I were speaking. Eytan just spoke. In many of the ideas of Tu B'shvat, even the ideas of eating fruits to correspond to the expression of God in this world, it's about transforming mere fruits into an expression of thanksgiving to God. And here we have the idea of transforming the bad into the good, even the sin into something good, through the notion of a Teinah.
I was saying so we can enjoy the fruit, enjoy the figs inside the bracha.
So we have all these fruits. The highest one is the of these would be the date, because it comes second to the word aretz. So we'll make a bracha on this, and again help to elevate everything we do to l'shem shamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam borei b'ri hayit.